The iron adze bites into the stubborn grain of the sycamore beam with a dull, bone-jarring crack. In the 1st century Levant, to be a tekton, a builder, a shaper of wood and stone, is not a life of quiet, contemplative artistry, but one of grueling, relentless endurance. The dawn has barely broken over the rolling ridges of the Galilee, yet the brutal rhythm of survival has already commenced. Sweat stings the eyes, carving winding, salty rivers through the fine, powdery layer of sawdust and pulverized earth that coats the skin of the laborer. There are no refined, water-powered mills here in this forgotten outpost. Every single plank, every joist, every wooden yoke must be wrestled directly from the wild forest. It must be felled by sheer, aching muscle, dragged over miles of unforgiving, rocky terrain back to the cramped courtyard, and stripped of its bark through hours of monotonous, shoulder-shattering labor. The rough, splintered handle of the ancient tool leaves deep, permanent calluses on the hands, thick, leathery badges of a life bound to the soil and the timber. The immense, dead weight of the raw wood threatens to pull the shoulders completely from their sockets with every agonizing heave. This is the hidden, unromanticized reality of Nazareth. It is a life built entirely upon aching joints, bruised and blackened fingernails, and the sharp, piercing scent of raw, bleeding sap mixing with the undeniable salt of human labor. To shape the wood is to be shaped by it, a daily crucifixion of the flesh long before any Roman cross is ever raised. Every strike of the hammer, every pull of the saw, echoes with the silent groan of a body pushed to its absolute physical limits. The golden, hazy light of the morning sun spills into the workspace, illuminating the dancing dust motes that hover in the stifling air, creating a halo of grit around the man who bends over his unending task. Yet, this immense physical crucible does not exist in a vacuum of solitary suffering. Just steps away from the flying wood chips and the harsh scrape of metal on stone, the cramped mud-brick courtyard hums with the complex, chaotic, and vibrant living machinery of a multi-generational Jewish household. Space in this marginalized hill town is a desperate luxury that they simply do not possess. The architecture of their lives is defined by proximity. Mud brick walls, packed with straw and baked hard by the relentless Mediterranean sun, enclose a small, shared earth-packed floor where every aspect of domestic existence collides. Grandparents, uncles, aunts, and a swarm of cousins weave around the designated work area in a delicate, deeply choreographed dance of collective survival. There is absolutely no privacy here, no quiet room to retreat to when the world becomes too heavy. There is only the profound, inescapable, and intensely physical bond of blood and shared burden. The air is alive with a layered symphony of subsistence. Beneath the sharp crack of the adze lies the low, rhythmic, agonizingly slow scraping of a heavy basalt millstone grinding roasted barley, the sound of women spending hours to produce mere handfuls of coarse flour. From the winding, narrow alleys of Nazareth beyond their walls comes the distant, plaintive braying of a tethered goat and the sudden, sharp bark of a stray dog. Inside the courtyard, the lively, overlapping chatter of a dozen family members rises and falls, a tapestry of Aramaic spoken in the rough, guttural accent of the northern country. They speak of the rain that has not come, of the crippling taxes demanded by Herod's collectors, of the simple, desperate hope that the Roman garrison in Sepphoris will not require their labor for a pittance. The women move with practiced grace, balancing heavy clay jars of water drawn from the distant village well, their rough-spun wool garments swishing against the dust. Children chase each other through the hanging laundry, their bare feet slapping against the cedar chips and stone dust, oblivious to the precarious nature of their existence. It is a beautiful, suffocating, essential web of humanity. To survive in Nazareth is to rely entirely upon the hands to your left and your right. It is a life lived so closely together that you know the rhythm of your brother's breathing, the specific ache in your father's back, and the quiet, unspoken fears of your mother just by the way she kneads the dough. As the arduous hours drag on, the blazing heat of the midday sun begins its slow, merciful descent, slipping below the rocky Galilean hills and casting long, bruised, purple shadows across the Jezreel Valley below. The frantic rhythm of the adze, the saw, and the chisel finally begins to slow, giving way inevitably to the primal, urgent rhythm of the hearth. The physical toll of the day's relentless labor settles deeply and heavily into weary muscles, stiffening the spine and knotting the shoulders. The men wash the worst of the grime from their faces with a meager splash of precious water, their skin still carrying the stubborn stains of crushed olives and cedar sap. But as the physical exertion pauses, a new, sharper pain takes its place. The deep, gnawing, undeniable pang of hunger. In this world, sustenance is never guaranteed. It is not a given right, but a daily, hard-fought victory snatched from the jaws of poverty. The soil is rocky, the rains are fickle, and the mouths to feed are many. The urgency of the evening meal hangs in the cooling air like a palpable force. The women of the household, their backs aching from the millstone and the loom, gather around the central fire pit dug directly into the earth of the courtyard floor. Their hands are dusted white with the coarse barley flour they spent the entire afternoon grinding by hand, a testament to the immense caloric expenditure required just to eat. The sharp, evocative scent of dry wood smoke begins to rise, curling upward into the darkening sky, quickly mingling with the pungent, earthy aroma of roasting wild onions and a meager pottage of brown lentils simmering slowly in a blackened clay pot. There is no grand feast waiting for these laborers. There is no fatted calf, no overflowing cups of sweet wine. There is only the absolute bare minimum required to keep the body functioning for one more rotation of the sun. The tension of poverty is a quiet hum beneath the surface of the evening. It is the silent calculation in the matriarch's eyes as she portions out the stew, ensuring that the men who must swing the heavy tools tomorrow receive enough to keep them standing, while the children receive enough to stop their crying. It is a precarious balance, a tightrope walked every single day upon the edge of hunger. When the family finally gathers to eat, they do not sit upon fine furniture, but lower their exhausted bodies onto worn, woven reed mats spread directly upon the packed earth of the courtyard. The twilight has deepened into the rich, starry velvet of a Middle Eastern night, and the only illumination comes from the flickering amber glow of the small cooking fire and the sputtering light of a single clay oil lamp set upon a niche in the mud brick wall. A profound, reverent silence falls over the bustling household as the patriarch takes his place at the center of the gathering. The chatter ceases, the children quiet. In his rough, dark, profoundly calloused hands, hands that have wrestled timber and shaped stone all day, he lifts a single, flat, rough-hewn loaf of barley bread. It is heavy, dense, and dark, baked over the hot ashes of the fire. He holds it aloft, the firelight catching the deep cracks in his skin and the permanent stains of his trade. He looks upon his family, his eyes carrying the weight of their survival, and then he lifts his gaze slightly upward. With a voice that is at once weary and deeply resonant, carrying the ancestral memory of a people who have known slavery, exile, and deliverance, he murmurs the ancient, sacred blessing. Baruch Ata Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, ha'motzi lechem min ha'aretz. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. The words hang in the smoky air, heavy with meaning. It is a profound, staggering intersection of the divine and the deeply ordinary. The God of the cosmos, the creator of the cedar forests of Lebanon and the great deep, is being thanked for a gritty, unyielding piece of charred barley bread. As the patriarch's strong hands grip the loaf and break it with a sharp, satisfying tear, the sound is like a covenant being renewed. He passes the broken pieces to his sons, his brothers, his wife. In this fleeting, shadowed moment, the divine presence does not manifest as a pillar of fire or a parted sea, but as the quiet, sustaining grace that allows this fragile flesh and blood family to endure. They eat in a heavy, grateful silence. The only sounds in the courtyard are the crackle of the dying fire, the distant, mournful howl of a jackal in the hills, and the quiet chewing of the evening meal. The bread is gritty. The coarse flour contains microscopic shards of the basalt millstone, a reality that slowly wears down the teeth over a lifetime. It is a difficult bread to chew, requiring patience and saliva, but it fills the hollow ache in the belly. They dip the rough pieces into the communal bowl of lentil pottage, savoring the salty, earthy broth, soaking up every last drop of sustenance. As the food works its way into their exhausted systems, a collective physical sigh seems to pass through the group. The intense, driving urgency of the day finally bleeds away, replaced by the heavy, narcotic pull of deep fatigue. The flickering firelight dances across their faces, illuminating the deep lines of sun damage, the sunken cheeks, and the fierce, undeniable love that binds them together. They are not merely surviving, they are enduring together. The patriarch wipes his mouth with the back of his hand, his eyes closing for a brief moment in silent gratitude. The women begin the slow, tired process of banking the fire for the night, covering the glowing embers with ash so they will not have to strike a new spark in the morning. The children, their bellies temporarily satisfied, lean heavy heads against their mother's shoulders, their eyes drooping. The day is done. The muscles still ache, the calluses still sting, and the raw wood still waits in the corner of the courtyard for tomorrow's dawn. But for this brief, shadowed interlude, they are at peace. The physical relief is profound, a momentary cessation of the relentless war against the elements and poverty. This is the untold preamble to salvation. As the stars wheel overhead in the vast, inky expanse of the Levantine sky, The profound, staggering truth of the Incarnation is laid bare in the dust of this very courtyard. The eternal legacy of the divine was not forged merely in the spectacular moments of walking on water, multiplying loaves, or raising the dead. Long before the blind saw or the lame leapt, the foundation of the redemption of humanity was hammered out on the anvil of these hidden, calloused years. The resilience of the Savior was forged in the quiet, sacred, brutal struggle of simply surviving until tomorrow. By submitting to the heavy adze, the blazing sun, the cramped quarters, and the gritty bread, the divine entered fully into the exhausting, beautiful, agonizing reality of the human condition. God did not simply visit the earth, He sweated upon it. He bled into its timber. He felt the terrifying, hollow ache of hunger and the desperate communal joy of a shared meal. The wood of the manger and the wood of the cross are inextricably connected by the thousands of ordinary planks shaped by these bruised divine hands in the obscurity of Nazareth. The eternal echo of this time is not found in a grand monument, but in the sanctification of all human labor, the blessing of every meager table, and the quiet, enduring strength of families huddled together against the dark. The Word became flesh, and for 30 years that flesh was tired, calloused, and covered in sawdust. It is the ultimate testament of love, a God who embraces the gritty, unyielding texture of ordinary life, elevating the desperate daily bread into a sacrament of eternal grace. In the quiet, breathing darkness of the Nazareth courtyard, the greatest story ever told is not being shouted from the mountaintops, but whispered in the steady, rhythmic heartbeat of a family resting, preparing to rise with the sun and lift the heavy wood once again.